Good afternoon, students. So for today, this week, this is week 6. And so we are going to, you only have one assignment due during week 6, and that's your week 6 final draft. So remember that your week 6 final draft will count as your midterm grade. So make sure that you incorporate all of the corrections, student feedback from the week 5 forum, and also make sure that you incorporate my teacher feedback from not only the week 5 forum, but also the week 4 rough draft. So some of you, I gave you a template that you can follow, and you can use that template for your week 6 final draft. And so make sure that's why we call this week 6, revision week, okay? The last stage of the writing process, where for this essay, we went through pre-writing in week 2. So the 3 stages, you must know cold by now, of the writing process is the pre-writing stage, where we did week 2 assignment, where we did the outline and the thesis. Then the writing stage, where we wrote our rough draft and converted the outline to a 5-paragraph essay structure with proper APA formatting. And then in week 6 is rewriting, which is the last stage. So pre-writing, writing, rewriting. It's very simple to remember. And so in the rewriting stage, which is where we are now, you revise your essay. So revision, there's 2 steps to the rewriting stage, is rewriting, revision, where you correct for your essay structure. You make sure that your thesis statement is the last sentence of the first paragraph and the first sentence of the last paragraph. And then you make sure that all your topic sentences relate back to your thesis. So that's pretty much, and then for the last stage of the rewriting stage is proofreading, very last stage, where you proofread for grammar. You can have someone else that you trust who's good at English look at your grammar to make sure you have really good grammar. So I hope you enjoyed the week 5 forum peer review. You all did really well. And a lot of students were worried that they weren't good enough in grammar, or that the English was not their first language. And yet during your peer review, you did really, really well. Remember that there are 3 kinds of peer review. Appreciation feedback, where you show positive comments to a student paper. Coaching and feedback, where you give suggestions on how the student can improve his paper. Mentoring feedback, where you answer specific questions from the student. We didn't have anybody actually ask questions in this class, so we didn't really do that much mentoring feedback. We did mainly coaching feedback and appreciation feedback. And then the last stage of feedback is the evaluation feedback, where I grade your paper to see if you've incorporated all of the feedback from everything else, and also if you follow the rubric. So always when you have an assignment, always look at the rubric to see what the expectations of that assignment is. So this week's lecture is going to be on the week 7 quiz. So the week 7 quiz is going to be next week. Also next week is also the week 7 forum. For this week, there is no forum, only the week 6 final draft. So you get all week to just work on that one assignment. Unlike other classes where you have forums every week, this class only has forums every other day. So without further ado, I will show you and go over the week 7 quiz. This is good. By the way, the good news is this is your very last grammar quiz. You'll have no more grammar quizzes after this. And the week 7 grammar quiz will go over sentence structure. And if you study sentence structure, you'll be able to avoid sentence fragments, which is a very common error in writing. I will now show you what I'm talking about. So here you have the week 7, it's this one, week 7 forum. I look good, don't I? All right, so the week 6 instructor session, it will have the week 7 grammar concepts, week 7 practice quiz, and the introduction to comparison contrast essay. So sentence structure, fun exercise. Sentences can be joined together by either a coordinating conjunction, subordinating conjunction, or a transition word. All of the following sentences are joined together by different conjunctions. If the conjunction is a subordinating conjunction, then the sentence becomes a dependent clause, and you need another sentence to complete the thought. These are known as complex sentences. If the sentences are joined by fanboy coordinating conjunctions, then those sentences are known as compound sentences, which means two sentences of equal importance. You need to learn the difference between these conjunctions to avoid sentence fragments. In student essays, I am always commenting to students, learn sentence structure to avoid sentence fragments. So you need to recognize the three basic sentence structures in English to avoid sentence structure: simple sentence, compound sentence, and complex sentence. So here, you should always have a list of conjunctions, different kinds of conjunctions. You should have a list of transition words and subordinating conjunction word list to help you write your essay. So John was fat, Mary was thin. Those are simple sentences because John is the subject, was is the verb, fat is the adjective. John was fat, but Mary was thin. This is a compound sentence because you have John was fat, independent clause, fanboys, for, and, nor, but, yet, so, and then Mary was thin. And you notice that when you have fanboys, you always have a comma before fanboys. So John was fat, comma, Mary was thin. John was fat, yet Mary was thin. And then here you have a complex sentence because you have a dependent clause, although John was fat, which means it cannot stand alone, in combination with an independent clause, Mary was thin. And when you put those two clauses together, it becomes a complex sentence. So although John was fat, although Mary was thin, John was fat. Here you have compound sentences because you have an independent clause, a transition word, and an independent clause. So here you can have, when you use a transition word, you can either have a semicolon after the first sentence or a period, but you always have to have a comma after a transition word. So John was fat, however, Mary was thin. Transition words are also known as conjunctive adverbs. So English sentence structure. The easiest sentence in English is subject plus verb plus object. A simple sentence is a complete thought, also known as an independent clause. Jack gets good grades. Jack is the subject, gets is the verb, good is the adjective, grades is the object. Jack studies hard. Jack is tall. Mary is short. Steve gambles all the time. Steve loses rarely at the casinos. At the casinos is a prepositional phrase. For prepositional phrases show time and place. At the table, on the table, under the table. Mary likes to dress up. And so here you have another simple sentence, subject plus verb plus infinitive phrase. So to dress up is an infinitive phrase. Robert likes to dance. To dance is an infinitive phrase. So you can have subject, verb, infinitive phrase. Up the hill sits an old house. So up the hill is a prepositional phrase. Sits is a verb. And old house is the simple subject, the single subject. So here you have the subject at the end of the sentence. And here you have a single subject. And here you have to have a singular subject. And you have to have a singular verb. So here you have to have subject-verb agreement. And then this up the hill sits an old house is the same as the old house sits up the hill. Down the street is the police station. So down the street is the prepositional phrase. Police station is the subject and is the verb. So here you have a singular subject, police station, and then you have to have a singular verb, is. And that's the same thing as the police station is down the street. So an independent clause is a complete sentence, a complete thought. A dependent clause is an incomplete sentence, and therefore it is a sentence fragment. The second kind of sentence are two sentences joined by fanboys, for, and, nor, but, yet, so. A compound sentence has fanboys in it. Fanboys are coordinating conjunctions that join two sentences together. John and Mary ate and slept. Here you have a compound sentence, compound subject, and a compound verb. You don't need any commas. John ate steak. Here you need a comma because here you have one sentence, and then you have another sentence joined by but. So here you have John gets good grades, for he studies hard. Jack is tall, but Mary is short. Steve gambles all the time, yet he rarely loses at the casinos. The third kind of sentence is a subordinating conjunction, known as the third kind of sentence is a complex sentence. A complex sentence is joined by a dependent clause and an independent clause. These are known as subordinating conjunctions: after, although, as long as though, because, before, even though, if, in order to, now that, once, rather than, since, so that, then, that, though, unless, until, where, whereas, wherever, whether, while. So these are all subordinating conjunctions that start a dependent clause, and it renders the independent clause dependent as sentence fragment. That's a mouthful. It simply means that when you have a sentence that starts with these subordinating conjunction, these words, with these words, then that deep independent clause, that sentence, becomes a sentence fragment. So if you simply have after John eats dinner here alone, that's a sentence fragment. If after John eats dinner cannot go alone, it needs an independent clause to come after it. So after John eats dinner, dependent clause, he goes to bed. And then when you put the two together, when you have a dependent clause and an independent clause together as one sentence, that's known as a complex sentence. And when the dependent clause is at the beginning of the sentence, you have to use a comma. So although John eats dinner, comma, he goes to bed. Although Jack is fat, he eats very little. As soon as the alarm clock rings, Steve jumps out of bed. As long as I study hard, I can get good grades. Because Michael Jordan is tall, he plays great basketball. Before I go to bed, I brush my teeth. If I avoid sick people, I can catch fewer colds. Once I get my driver's license, I will own my own car. I will buy my own car. Rather than spend a lot of money on clothes, I like to make my own clothes. Since I lost my husband, I have to get a job. Unless you do your job perfectly, you will get fired. When I was younger, I used to have a lot of energy. So the words in the table and the bolded words are all subordinating conjunctions. If subordinating conjunction comes after the sentence, you do not need, if the dependent clause comes after the sentence, you do not need a comma. John goes to bed. Notice there's no comma here. After he eats dinner. He eats very little, although he is fat. Steve jumps out of bed as soon as the alarm clock rings. I can get good grades as long as I study hard. Michael Jordan plays great basketball because he is tall. I brush my teeth before I go to bed. So all these sentences are complex sentences. Sentence fragment, after John eats dinner. That is not a complete thought. So if you want to complete the sentence, you would say, after John eats dinner, he goes to bed. Now, when you have an adjective clause, everything changes. Now, adjective clauses are still dependent clauses, just like the clauses above. And it's still a complex sentence, but adjective clauses come with their own set of rules. If an adjective clause is in the middle or beginning of a sentence, it has two commas. If the adjective clause comes at the end of a sentence, it has one comma. That's what makes adjective clauses different, because adjective clause modify the verb that comes before it. So if I say the table, which is made of wood, okay, is antique, then you're going to have two commas, because which is made of wood is in the middle of a sentence. I'll show you in a second. So here, I love the table. And then if the dependent clause with that, which, who, whom is at the end of a sentence, these dependent clauses need a comma. And if you want to know why that is, you can Google restrictive versus non-restrictive clauses. It has to do with whether or not the clause, the adjective clause, is important or essential to the sentence or not essential to the sentence. So here, who, whom, whose, if the dependent clause with adjective clauses come at the end of the sentence, you need one comma. If it comes in the middle, so here you have some examples of it comes at the end of the sentence. I love the table that is made of wood. So here it has one comma. If the adjective clause comes in the beginning or middle of the sentence, you have two commas. John, who is French, lives in Paris. You can also look up a positive, okay, for this. So let's repeat our lesson so far. A simple sentence, which is the easiest sentences in English, subject, verb, object. John, subject, eats, verb, dinner, object. Compound sentences are two sentences joined by fanboys, for, nor, for, and, but, nor, yet, so. So John eats dinner, comma, and he likes steak. So you always place a comma before fanboys. And also when you have a conjunctive adverb or a transition word, you also need to place a semicolon after the first sentence and then a comma after the transition word. So John likes to walk outside, semicolon, therefore he is fit. So this is a compound sentence. A complex sentence is when you have a dependent clause and an independent clause as one sentence. So the dependent clause is, although John eats dinner late, he likes to eat steak. So when the dependent clause comes at the beginning of the sentence, you put one comma. If the dependent clause comes at the end of the sentence, you don't have any commas. So in a nutshell, in English, you have all of these kinds of sentences. All right, that's it, you know. So English grammar, English sentence structure is really very easy. Here is an example of a correct sentence in complex sentence on your quiz. If you aren't going to be able to make it, please call. So that is a correct complex sentence. Here you have, if you aren't going to make it, is a dependent clause. And then here it's at the beginning of the sentence, so you need a comma, please call. It takes skill to call in sick to work. It takes skill to call in sick to work with a phony excuse. So that is a simple sentence. First of all, one must be, and the reason why this is bolded blue is you got to remember it for the quiz, because these sentences, they're going to ask you, first of all, one must be sure to speak directly to the boss. Then the quiz is going to ask, is this a correct or incorrect sentence? So that's why you have to understand that this is a correct sentence because it has a subject. One is a subject, must be sure to speak is a verb phrase, directly to the boss is an infinitive phrase. So subject, verb, object. So it is a complete sentence. It is correct. Today I will be making appointments on the phone. So that is correct. So subject, I will be making is a verb. Appointments on the phone is subject. So subject, verb, object. When I was 4, my father taught me how to ride a bike. So here you have a dependent clause, and then you have an independent clause. So this is a correct sentence. But you're going to learn that these are wrong, not because of the structure. Structurally, these are correct, but the meaning is wrong. So at the age of 4, my father taught me to ride a bike. This is wrong because this at the age of 4 should be modifying you. It's not modifying your father. Was your father 4 years old when he rode a bike? And so here you have a dangling modifier. So we're going to learn the difference between dangling and misplaced modifiers in the next section. I could tell the room had been dusted, for all the pictures were crooked. This is a correct sentence because this is a compound sentence. So here you have For, which is one of the fanboys, joining two sentences, two complete sentences, and that makes it a compound sentence. What are modifiers? Modifiers are words that describe, that provide details and description about the object. I'll say it again, because on the quiz, they're going to ask you true or false. Modifiers are words that provide details and description about the object. That's true, because modifiers is like an adjective is a modifier, and it modifies shirt. And so therefore, blue provides details and description about the object shirt. There are two kinds of modifiers. You have dangling modifiers, occurs when a modifier does not logically refer to other words in the sentence. Here's an example of a dangling modifier. Visiting the zoo, the birds chirped loudly. Who was visiting the zoo? Was it the birds visiting the zoo? No, the birds live at the zoo. You are the one that's visiting the zoo. So that's why it's missing a subject. So this is known as a dangling modifier when you're missing the subject. Correct sentence would be, while I was visiting the zoo, the birds chirped loudly. Therefore, the visiting the zoo is missing a subject. So this makes it a dangling modifier. Walking on the sidewalk, a car raced by. And then you need to know that this is a dangling modifier because on the quiz, they're going to ask you, is this sentence a dangling modifier or a misplaced modifier? This is a dangling modifier because walking on the sidewalk, so your car grew legs and walked on the sidewalk? No, you're the one that walked on the sidewalk. So this sentence is missing a subject. Supposedly, you're supposed to say, correct sentence would be, while I was walking on the sidewalk, a car raced by. While I was working, an earthquake shook the building. So this is a dangling modifier. So this is not incorrect. While working, an earthquake shook the building. So the earthquake grew hands and then shook the building. So obviously not. So having finished the assignment. So here in the quiz, they're going to ask you, what kind of error is this sentence? Is this a dangling modifier or a misplaced modifier? It's a dangling modifier because it's missing a subject and the modifier is left dangling. That's one way to remember it. Having finished the assignment, the TV was turned on. And so did the TV finish its assignment? No, you finished your assignment. So the correct sentence was, after I finished my assignment, I turned on the TV. I is missing. So that's a dangling modifier. Having arrived late, a written excuse was needed. Who arrived late? You arrived late. So therefore, having arrived late, I gave a written excuse to my boss, or a written excuse was needed to my boss. So that's also a dangling modifier because it's missing I. And so a misplaced modifier occurs when a modifier is placed incorrectly in the sentence. So here you have some examples of misplaced modifiers. The patient was referred to a therapist with severe psychological problems. So you're going to take your patient to a crazy therapist? No. So here, with severe psychological problems is in the wrong place. So who has the severe psychological problems? The patient. So you have to move this sentence with severe psychological problems and put it over here. That's why it's called a misplaced modifier, because the modifier is placed in the wrong position. Remember that your modifier always has to be placed next to what it modifies. And so in this case, with severe psychological problems, it's not the doctor that's crazy. You're the one that has the psychological problems. So therefore, you have to move this with severe problems to a therapist. Notice how I changed the position, okay? So here I have it's the patient with the severe problems that needs to be referred to the therapist. It's not the therapist. So if I move this, so when you have to move a when you have to move the phrase to the correct place, that's why it's misplaced. That's known as a misplaced modifier. So if you have to move the modifier to correct the sentence, it's known as a misplaced modifier. The new employee will take the front office wearing the brown suit. So the front office is wearing a brown suit? No, it's the new employee that's wearing the brown suit. So once again, I have to fix this by going like this. I have to cut and paste this, and then I have to say it's the employee that's wearing the brown suit, and they're the ones that's going to take the front office. So when you have to change the position of the modifier in order to fix the sentence, that's known as a misplaced modifier. My uncle just watches one television station. And so here, what kind of error is this? Is this a misplaced modifier or a dangling modifier? This is a misplaced modifier because my uncle just watches, just should be here. So just, so I need to go, just watches just one television station. So this is a misplaced modifier, okay? So if you have to change the modifier around in order to, you've always got to place the modifier close to what it's modifying. I will be on the phone making appointments today. So your phone is going to go and make appointments? No, you're the one making appointments. So the modifier has to be next to what it's modifying. So the correct sentence will be, I will be making appointments on the phone today. So that's a misplaced modifier. The torn student's book lay on the desk. And so here is the student's torn book lay on the desk. Sentence fragments are missing parts of the sentence, like a subject, a verb, or a complete thought. A sentence fragment is an incomplete sentence. A sentence fragment does not express a complete thought. Sentence fragments are dependent clauses. So here are some examples of a sentence fragment. Broke the glass. Who broke the glass? So the complete sentence is the dog broke the glass. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, that's a fragment. What about them? Mr. and Mrs. Smith are old people, so that would be the complete sentence. So here are some examples of sentence fragments on your quiz. Not to a coworker or secretary, but that's a fragment. And not sound like a faker, that's a fragment. When he is fat, then it's missing a complete sentence. What about it? What about when he is fat? Although she sings, what about she sings? If a person talks to a coworker who doesn't like him or her, that doesn't express a complete thought, so therefore it is a sentence fragment. The last kind of sentence fragment we're going to study are comma splices and fused sentence. A run-on sentence is two or more sentences written as one. A run-on sentence occurs when ideas are joined incorrectly with incorrect punctuation. A comma splice is when you use a comma instead of a period at the end of a sentence. A comma splice occurs when two independent clauses are joined with a comma instead of a conjunction. So here you have John ate dinner, comma, he went to the restaurant. Okay, so this is a comma splice because you're supposed to put here, you're supposed to put a period. It's supposed to be John ate dinner, period, he went to the restaurant. Oh, and also you have to capitalize, he went to the restaurant. Or if you want to stick with the comma, you can write and he went to the restaurant. Now it's correct because then it becomes a compound sentence. But if you take away the conjunction, then it's not correct. So you always need either a period at the end of the sentence or a conjunction. So that's what a comma splice is. A fused sentence is when you forget to use your period and you just say, John ate dinner, he went to the restaurant. Where's your period? A comma splice is when you use a comma unnecessarily. So correct. So when you want to correct the sentence, John ate dinner, period, he went to the restaurant. Or you can have a dependent complex sentence. John, who ate dinner, went to the restaurant. John, who went to the restaurant, ate dinner. Here are more examples of comma splices from your quiz. The can of mushroom soup must have spoiled. And here you're missing something. So what are you missing? Okay, and so this is a comma splice. I think that this originally was like this. So I took it out. So when you use a comma splice, when you use a comma unnecessarily, that's a comma splice. Correct answer is the can of mushroom soup must have spoiled, period. It was bulging at the top. So this is an example of a comma splice. I respect my parents, comma. I resent their attempts to choose a career for me. So then the correct sentence is if I were to go like this. That's correct, okay? So this is a comma splice, meaning unnecessary comma. A fused sentence is when two sentences are put together with no comma. The most popular language in the world is Chinese, and it's missing a comma here. More than 1 billion people speak it. George knew the answer to the last exam question. It's missing a comma here. He didn't have enough time to write his response. So when you're missing a comma, that's known as a fused sentence because the two sentences are fused together, and then you have a sentence. You have a run-on sentence, which is incorrect. Which sentence demonstrates a possessive subject? So when you have a possessive subject, that means you use an apostrophe S to show ownership. So here, the China doll's dress was a sunny yellow. So whose dress is it? It's the China doll's dress. Jack's hat was a bright red. So these are known as a possessive pronoun. Possessive, yeah, oh yeah, it is a possessive pronoun, but it is a possessive subject because it's in the subject part of the sentence. Remember that subject pronouns all come before the verb, while object pronouns come after the verb. So Jack's hat was a bright red. That's a possessive subject, okay? Because the subject is showing ownership. The subject is showing possession. So therefore it's a possessive subject. And then when it's after the verb, then it's known as a possessive object. So I live in Darren's house. Do you believe in woman's work? Oh, do you believe that cooking is a woman's work? So that's a possessive object. So are you ready for the practice quiz? Okay. The new employee will take the front office wearing the brown suit. What kind of error is in this sentence? Is this a dangling modifier, a misplaced modifier, or no error? I'll give you some time to think about it. It is. Oh, somebody's here. You come in just in time to take the practice week 7 quiz.
I've been here for like since 3:15.
Oh, okay. All right. So that means you listened to the entire presentation?
Yeah.
Okay, so that means you're ready to take the quiz. Good. So the new employee will take the front office wearing the brown suit. What kind of error is in this sentence? Is it dangling or misplaced modifier?
Misplaced modifier.
Excellent, because the new employee wearing the brown suit will take the front office. Which is the correct sentence? I can't seem to find the keys. This is the first time you weren't late. If you aren't going to make it, please call.
C, if you aren't going to make it, please call.
Yes, because the other two missing their apostrophes for their contractions. If I were to put the apostrophe there, then that would be a correct sentence and not sound like a faker. Is that a complete sentence or a fragment?
Fragment.
I didn't hear you. What did you say?
Sorry, B, fragment.
Fragment, okay. Which sentence below is correct? I'm going to try to make this on its own. Let's see if this works. Oh, I guess not. All right. I was trying to make it on its own page. Okay. Which sentence below is correct? I just made all the numbers wrong. That's not going to work. let's see, for, let's control, Z. All right, so which sentence below is correct? At the age of 4, my dad taught me to ride a bike. Or is it B, when I was 4, my dad taught me to ride a bike? Which one is correct? Now, structurally, they're both correct. It's the meaning that's wrong. That's the hint.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna go with B because it specifies who was for.
Excellent. Yes, this is a dangling modifier because we're missing who was 4. Your father was 4 years old when he taught you to ride a bike. So when I was 4, my dad taught me to ride a bike. So that's the correct answer to which sentence below is correct. The most popular language in the world is Chinese. More than 1 billion people speak it. Is that a complete sentence or a run-on sentence?
The run-on sentence.
Okay. Which sentence is correct? Linda took her daughter to the doctor who has a high fever, or Linda took her daughter who has a high fever to the doctor?
B.
B, yes, it's a daughter that has the high fever that goes to the doctor. Would you go to a doctor that has a high fever and could give you the flu? Okay, my
question
uncle.
though.
No,
I have a
wouldn't.
question.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Would who has high fever be surrounded in commas on B?
What about B?
Linda, who took her daughter, comma, who had high fever.
Ah, that's an excellent question. Okay. Why don't we, how come a comma is not necessary in this sentence? Why don't we use a comma? You caught a really good, yeah, you got an adjective clause. I said in the beginning, when an adjective clause is in the middle of a sentence, you have to have 2 commas, all right? So if I simply said, Linda took her daughter to the doctor. Well, okay, she took her daughter to the doctor, but why? So it's up to you as the writer. You get to decide if who has a high fever is really important. If you think who has a high fever is really essential to your writing and your sentence, you're not going to include commas. You're just going to go like this, okay? But if you, the writer, decide that's a really, that's not really an important part of my sentence, I don't really need to, you don't really need to know that. And then I put a comma. You see, this is why I said that this is known as restrictive or non-restrictive sentences. So when you write the paper, you get to decide whether, when a who is in the middle of a sentence, whether or not you have to have commas or not. This has to do with appositives. So I'm gonna pause the practice quiz for a second. So if I say John, who is French, lives in Paris. Now, this sentence is equal in meaning to John lives in Paris. Why? Because I put commas there. That means it's not really that important if he's French, Spanish, or whatnot. He lives in Paris. But if I, the writer, thinks, oh, this is so important, John, then I have to, everybody has to know he's French because he speaks such good French, lives in Paris. It depends on what you're talking about. Oh, John, who is French, lives in Paris. He's a native speaker of French. He'll make a great teacher for you, French teacher for you, okay? Then we don't put commas in because it's such an important element in the sentence. That's called restrictive or non-restrictive adjective clauses. It's not necessary for this quiz. You just went one level ahead of your quiz. And so this is known as an appositive. Okay, there are different names for this. This is known as an adjective clause. When you put commas in it, it's known as an adjective clause, relative clause, what is that? Yeah, relative clause, appositives. There's other names, but those are the ones that come off the top of my head. So if you want to look it up more, you can look up appositives, non-restrictive or restrictive. Are you sorry you asked that question? No?
Yeah,
Yes?
kind of. I'm sorry.
And so getting back to the lesson, okay. Oh no, I have the numbers didn't change. Okay, so here we don't need a, but it was an excellent question. I actually skipped over that. I did have that in my lecture, but I skipped over it because I wanted to keep it simple while everybody still remembered the examples. but that's okay. That's okay. So here you have, where was I? Oh, my uncle just watches one television station. What kind of error is in this sentence? Is this a dangling modifier or a misplaced modifier?
My uncle just watches one television station. I don't see anything.
What?
I don't see what's wrong.
Actually, okay, here, you know, my uncle just watches one television station. Technically, it's not wrong. It's just too conversational. If you want to be totally correct, you want to put this, he watches just one television station. Okay, so that's more correct than my uncle just watches one television station. It's such a minor difference in meaning. And I think that in older English, that had a big difference in meaning. But as people started, English is evolving, and English is evolving to become more very conversational. So things that were considered formal and informal in the recent past are now, it's the same, okay? So that's why you didn't notice the difference in this particular sentence. Just know that a few generations back, my uncle just watches one television station sounded completely different than my uncle watches just one television station, okay? That's a little linguistic history you don't need to know. All you need to know is if you've got to change the modifier to a different place, then it's a misplaced modifier. That's all you need to know for the quiz. If I've got to go around changing this in order to make it a correct sentence, all right? So here I got to change it back because to make it incorrect for the next student who's going to look at this, all right? So if I've got to change the modifier, so this just, what is it modifying? It's modifying the television station. Therefore, you want to put the modifier closer to what it's modifying. That's what all of these run-on sentence things are about, is you've got to always put the modifier close to what it's modifying, okay? So that's what makes it incorrect. George knew the answer to the last essay question, although he didn't have enough time to write his response. Is that a complete sentence or a run-on sentence?
That's a run-on sentence.
That's a run-on sentence because you're missing a period. So if I wanted to fix this, I would go like this, or I could go like this and, okay, either you put a conjunction there, or you just put a period and capitalize. Walking on the sidewalk, a car raced by. What kind of error is in this sentence? Is this a dangling modifier, a misplaced modifier, or no error?
The dangling modifier.
It is a dangling modifier because your car cannot grow legs and walk on the sidewalk. First of all, one must be sure to speak directly to the boss. Is this a complete sentence or a fragment?
Complete sentence.
It's a complete sentence because you have subject one must be sure to speak, verb phrase, directly to the boss, adverb phrase. So subject, verb, object. While working, an earthquake shook the building. What kind of error is in this sentence? Is this a dangling modifier or a misplaced modifier?
Dangling modifier.
Dangling modifier, because when you're missing a subject, then it means that you're leaving your modifier. What are you modifying? Are you modifying the earthquake or are you modifying yourself? So therefore, the modifier always has to be while I was working. So while I was working, an earthquake shook the building. Okay, so here, if a person talks to a coworker who doesn't like him or her, is that a complete sentence or a fragment?
A fragment.
Fragment, because that doesn't express a complete thought. Not to a coworker or a secretary. Is that a complete sentence or a fragment?
Fragment.
Fragment. The can of mushroom soup must have spoiled. It was bulging at the top. Is that a complete sentence or a run-on?
Run-on.
Run on, yeah, because you need to put a comma, you need to put either a period here, or you could go like this. And it was bulging at the top. And then what kind of sentence does this become? Simple, compound, or complex?
And it's compound.
Excellent. Yes, it becomes compound. So here it just becomes run on. Okay. Modifiers are words that A, B, or C.
A, offers details and descriptions.
Yes, just like blue describes the shirt, blue shirt. You can remember it that way. Blue shirt. What does blue do? It describes and offers details about the object shirt. George knew the answer to the last essay exam. He didn't have enough time to write his response. Is this a complete sentence or a run-on?
Run-on.
Run-on. I will be on the phone making appointments today. Is this a dangling modifier or a misplaced modifier?
Misplaced, I guess.
Yes, that's correct. Oh, it keeps changing numbers. Yeah, so I will be making appointments on the phone today. So therefore, if I've got to change the sentence, it's a misplaced modifier. I respect my parents. I resent their efforts, their attempts to choose a career for me. Is this a complete sentence or a run-on sentence?
Run-on sentence.
A run-on sentence, because here you would add and. And then you could have, then you have a correct sentence, okay? So make sure you can correctly answer the practice quiz before you, in other words, make sure, for those of you watching at home, make sure that you can correctly answer the questions, practice quiz, just like Gail just did, before you take the actual quiz. And then, in case you're wondering, these are the answers to the practice quiz. And so we've gone through the writing process. We've done the pre-writing, where we chose the essay topic. Writing is when we do the rough draft. Rewriting is when we proofread our paper. And so right now, we're in the rewriting stage of our essay. How are you doing in your essay writing, Gail? On your week 6 final draft? How's it going?
I've been looking over it, but really, I don't know how to word it.
I couldn't hear you. You're going in and out. What did you say?
I was really looking for critiques from other people on my paper to show like maybe things that I could change, polish it off. But
Well, that
it really wasn't in responses.
Well, it probably means that you had such a good paper that there wasn't anything that needed changing. That's also the possibility. It's if you, and either someone posted too late and didn't get much feedback, or they uploaded their paper as an attachment, you get no feedback, or your paper is already perfect, you get no feedback. So A, B, or C, you probably fell into C, as in it was already too perfect. You probably got a lot of appreciation feedback, like, what a great paper you have. I love your topic, and I think you're a great writer. Your thesis statement is perfect. Did you get stuff like that? More or less?
No, I got a message from you that was like, how are you in class?
What?
What kind of lessons would you like to learn? That was pretty much all I got that I saw the last time I looked.
Oh, okay. What kind of, oh, okay. Oh yeah, in other words, for my future videotapes, is that what it is? What future topics? Yeah, that means that if I didn't say anything, then that means that your paper is already perfect. Doesn't need any fixing. You could just upload it to the week 6 rough draft. Oh, not rough draft. I've been saying rough draft so many times. Week 6 final draft, and it's already perfect. So that means, you know, there's no changes necessary. Therefore, I went on to the next topic, which was, what other video topics would you like me to write about? You know, because when you look at my writing channel, a lot of those videos were created because students asked me questions like, what is parallelism? what is this? What is a thesis? I don't understand how to do a thesis statement, things like that. So I created those videos to respond to student questions. So if you have any questions about, but I want to learn how to, so if you're interested in learning some particular writing topic and you want me to create a video or a PowerPoint, then I can do that. And so I have about 50, I guess, over 50 videos or 100 videos based on student questions, more or less. Also based on textbook. So here I'm going to go over the second half of your class. So when we do week 8, we're going to do the second half of your class. You're going to be doing a comparison contrast essay where you're going to compare two things. You're going to compare two musicians. You're going to compare two foods. Coke is better than Pepsi, or classical music is better than rock music because warm weather is better than cold weather because reason 1, reason 2, reason 3. And then week 8, your week 8 assignment is going to be your pre-writing assignment. Your week 10, your week, that's not the correct one. Week, off the top of my head, your week 11 essay will be your writing. Okay, your week 11 will be revision. Okay, and this is a little out of order because you're going to be doing pre-writing and writing together. Oh, in the week 7 forum, that's what's missing. And I knew there was something missing. Week 7 forum is pre-writing. Week 8 is writing. Yeah, okay, that's what it is. All right, so as we know, the writing process is pre-writing, writing, rewriting. So in week 7, you're going to choose a topic for your comparison contrast essay. You're going to decide if you're going to write about cold weather versus hot weather. Then in week 8, you're going to write a rough draft of that essay. And then in week 11, you're in the week 11 forum. This is also a forum, week 11. So it's very similar to the week 5 forum. You're going to post your rough draft to the week 11 forum. So we're just going to repeat the writing process from essay 1 to essay 2. Then in week 12, the last week of this class, you're going to hand in your final draft, just like you're handing in the final draft of your first paper. And then week 9 and 10 are totally different. You're going to write a totally different paper, and you're going to do credible sources. So 9 and 10, you take a break from the writing. I don't know why they wrote it that way, but that's basically it. 7, 8, because by the time people reach week 11, they're like, what essay 2? People have forgotten. So this is the way it is. And then 9, and then in week 9, you're going to write a persuasive essay, which is totally different from all the other essays. And then you're going to have to choose a persuasive. So you could think about right now, think ahead, what 2 topics you want to write about for your persuasive essay and for your comparison contrast essay. And then you're done for this class because there are no more quizzes. In this class, we're going to be learning APA, credible sources, and then you're going to write 2 essays. That's it. Okay. So here are the requirements for your week 6 rough draft. Have you handed in? And it's now worth 100%. So this is out of date. So it goes like that. And here your comparison contrast essay. Here's an example of how you're going to structure your comparison contrast essay. Los Angeles is a better place to live than New York because LA has better beaches, monument, and food. And so here you have LA has better beaches. And so that goes with the thesis statement here. LA has better monuments. It has thesis statement over here. LA has better food, and it has thesis statement here. So this is known as the alternate method. And you're going to express the evaluative. I'm going to go over 2 different kinds of thesis statements. We're going to be going over the explanatory thesis statement, evaluative thesis statement, but not in this lesson. I'm just giving you an example of what your comparison contrast essay is going to look like. And this should have an A over there. Comparison contrast, in which you compare 2 topics, 2 people, 2 events, 2 movies, or 2 places. Okay, and so I will go over all of this. Oh, I guess I am doing an explanatory in this lesson. Oops. when we do an explanatory thesis statement, we're just explaining the facts. We don't show our preferences. We don't usually even show our point of view. We just express the facts. And this occurs when you have a very difficult subject, such as COVID-19 is way more serious than the ordinary flu, for instance, or wearing masks is very important. Although now wearing a mask has become a persuasive essay topic because some people want to wear masks and some people don't. So when you choose your persuasive essay topic for week 9, you have to choose a topic that people can agree on or disagree on, because we're also going to learn how to write a rebuttal paragraph, and we're going to write about how the other side thinks, and then you write your point of view. So it's called the opposite point of view and rebuttal paragraph. So we're going to do all of that when I do my week 9, what is a persuasive essay PowerPoint, in which I identify 3 different kinds of persuasive essays. So I'm going to do all of that later. So anyway, an explanatory thesis statement. So 2 kinds of thesis statements. An explanatory thesis statement is for difficult subjects and contradictory subjects and controversial subjects. An evaluative thesis statement is when you state your opinion. This is for easy subjects, like cold weather is better than hot weather. And we use an evaluative thesis statement for easy topics because otherwise, if you simply write cold weather has holidays, while hot weather does not have holidays, or hot weather has swimming and cold weather has skating. Okay, for instance, that would be an example of an explanatory thesis statement where you just state the facts. Well, that's really dull, but everybody knows what cold weather is, and everybody knows what hot weather is. So you only use an explanatory thesis statement when something is really complicated and difficult, and you have to explain to an audience, like a very technical subject. Like if I were to say that T-sol is way better, T-sol and T-sol are different. And then you're going to go, what's T-sol? What's T-sol? In that case, then I use an explanatory thesis statement, because otherwise your audience has no idea what you're talking about. If you're going to use an easy topic that you're going to have in week 7, we're going to be using the evaluative thesis statement. Something is better than something. Something is worse than something. Okay, so an evaluative thesis statement, that means that if you have 2 easy topics, then what makes your essay interesting is your opinion of that essay. That's what hooks the reader to your essay. For the explanatory essay, what hooks the reader is how difficult it is, and the reader wants to know, what is it? And wants to figure out what it is. Okay, so that's why you have 2 different kinds of thesis statements: explanatory thesis statement, evaluative thesis statement. And for the most part, you're going to do an evaluative thesis statement. And so here, your comparison contrast topics for week 7. Okay, this is going to be a week 7 forum. And so here, 2 different drinks, 2 different animals. Dogs are better than cats. Fruits are better than vegetables. Childhood is better than adulthood, or rap music is better than pop music. Friends are better than family. Reality TV are better than or worse than, all of that. And here you have other topics, which I'm not going to read to you. If you find, because this is all that's listed in the week 7 forum instructions. Okay, so this is the week 7, let's just say forum. Okay, anyway, so here you post your initial post by Wednesday, and then you respond by Sunday. Okay, so you have 2 due dates in a forum. So here you have other topics: Republicans versus Democrats, cash versus credit cards, vegan versus non-vegan, comedy versus drama TV. So here's all, I'm not going to read them all, but here some people like to choose which one, boys versus girls, that sort of thing. So, and then here you have different kinds. And then you can also write subject block. So here I show you 2 different ways in which you can write your comparison contrast essay. Either you use the 5-paragraph essay structure, where you say Los Angeles is a better place to live because of the fantastic beaches, the Mexican food, and the movie studios. That you're already familiar with. That's called the alternate method, side by side. I think it's also known as point by point or side by side method. And then here, this you haven't done, block method, also known as one side at a time or subject by subject. And here you would write about New York, and you would write about beaches, Mexican food, and culture, and you write 7 sentences, and in that order. And here you're going to write beaches, Mexican food, and culture in California. So I would write in New York, Jones Beach looks like has a lot of cigarettes in it, and it's very dirty, crowded, Jones Beach. The beaches are very dirty and crowded. The Mexican food is stale because all the food is shipped from California. The culture, however, is wonderful, okay, very diverse. Okay, all of that's going to be in one paragraph. Then California beaches are also somewhat dirty, but much cleaner than New York. Mexican food is way better because we're right next to, California is right next to Mexico. So the Mexican food tastes so good. And the culture, yes, like New York, the culture here is very diverse. So that's how you're going to write all in one paragraph. So I tell students, if you tend to be very yak like me, then you should use the alternate method. If you are able to be very concise, you can use the block method. And this is the only time you can have 4 paragraphs, okay? So then I have other examples, and you can read through this. And then my next, then I'm done. So my next instructor session, week 8, is going to be about transition words, parallel structure, pie structure, and I'm going to do more comparison contrast. Although I think the school might be taking, well, you'll still be attending school and doing assignments, but you might be, but teachers might be giving less live lectures because it will be Thanksgiving week, the week after next. So I think fewer teachers will give live lectures. You'll probably see a lot more recorded lectures during Thanksgiving week, just so you know. Anyway, so that's the end of this. I will stop share. So unless you guys have questions about the week 7, oh, and the week 7 quiz prep, I also gave you in your email. I gave you your week 7 quiz prep PowerPoint in your email, and then I will email you this week 7 quiz lecture notes also in your email. Gail, do you have any other questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so you're clear on what to do for the week 7 forum and the week 7 quiz?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to wrap up for today, and I hope to see you guys next week, although I think it's Thanksgiving week, so everybody's going to be traveling on Wednesday, right? So that's why I'll probably do, I might even do a recorded, pre-recorded something or other, and everybody could just watch it anytime they want. So anyway, so I'll see you definitely live in week 9, okay? Because I think in week 8, I'm allowed to do a pre-recorded one. So I'll see you in week 9, and I'll pre-record something for week 8. So have a great Thanksgiving if I don't see you until Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving, okay? All right.
Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there as well. I can't believe it's Thanksgiving already. It went so fast. So see you in week 9.